Welcome to the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, where it is never too early for fantasy football. My name is Jeff.
Alex.
As always, thank you for downloading, listening, liking, and commenting on our podcast videos. Please join our community by subscribing to us on the socials. Our handle on all platforms is at N2E Fantasy. We're also available on all major podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy. Alex, what do we have on today's show?
All right. On this episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, we are going to cover the latest league news and also cover a lot of the cut down day items, specifically how it relates to fantasy and targeting mostly, if not entirely, offensive skill positions. So, Jeff, what do we have first?
Well, you'll be happy that one of your favorites has signed a new extension, as the Commanders and wide receiver Terry McLaurin have agreed to a 3-year contract extension. What's your thoughts on McLaurin finally signing?
Well, I'm glad he did it now and it didn't eat into the season. And it does look like it's $32 million per year. So good for him. I'm glad he got his bag, and good for the Commanders for coming to the sensible decision to take advantage of their quarterback being on a rookie deal and spending the money on skill positions. They need him in this roster to actually be competitive. So this was the only logical, smart decision.
Absolutely. And I think we can go ahead and draft Terry McLaurin like we were before. So no change for me on that part. But I know you, especially after Ayuk last year, might have a different opinion about missing camp and not getting the normal ramp up period. Thoughts there?
I mean, maybe that's a concern early on in the season, but ultimately, where you're drafting Terry is probably in the 5th or 6th round, maybe 4th round at the highest right now until his ADP climbs back up. So you're still getting a good value. I think Ayuk was being taken higher.
All right. So we have a few trades now to discuss, and the Vikings trade quarterback Sam Howell to the Eagles to be the third string to Jalen Hurts, and that could be a prelude to a trade of Tanner McKee. Also, we have the Commanders trading running back Brian Robinson Jr. to the 49ers. As we had discussed last week, it looked for sure that the Commanders running back was going to be on a new team or cut relatively shortly. But that wasn't the only addition of the 49ers. They added Chiefs wide receiver Sky Moore in a trade, and the Broncos traded wide receiver Devon Bailey to the Saints. Any of these guys, I mean, obviously Sam Howell is a third string quarterback. Any of these players here have any fantasy relevance for this upcoming year?
Well, right now, Tanner McKee is injured, I believe. So Sam Howell is going to be the primary backup until he's back. So, I mean, it's a solid move for them. I'm a little surprised they did it, but Kyle McCord was waived. He probably signs back on the practice squad or somebody else picks him up. And they can always flip Sam Howell or McKee to somebody else at some point in the season. Sky Moore to the 49ers is interesting because everyone is banged up or suspended except for Pearsall. So, I mean, does that make him the wide receiver number 2 for San Francisco at the moment, unless they make more moves?
It could, and I don't really like that.
That would be the craziest thing right now for Sky Moore to finally break out. It might be worth a dart throw or a waiver wire watch, depending on how things play out. But if they work out Jennings' calf injury / holdout, whatever it is, then he falls back down to earth a little bit. Vele to the Saints was a little surprising because a lot of the Broncos beat writers, especially, Benjamin Albright, the number 1 beat writer there, was saying how the team was talking him up as one of their top 25 players on the team. and then they turn around and trade him for a fourth round pick. That's not something I would do for a top 25 player unless they had a bloated contract. Now, he was, I believe, on the last year of his contract, and he's a 28-year-old fourth year player or I don't know what his deal is, but he's 28. I don't think he's anything special, so I get it from the Broncos standpoint. They have some young guys they brought in that are better already, in my opinion. And Mims is now their number 2 on their depth chart, which is a little bit of a surprise to me, but not, I guess, too surprising. For the Saints, they have Olave, they have Rashid Shaheed. I guess they needed a third guy behind him.
Brandon Cooks.
They also have Brandon Cooks. So Vele, is he wide receiver 4 for them, or does he make Cooks expendable? Are they worried about Olave's health or Shaheed's health?
I have no idea what they're doing, to be honest. Trading a fourth rounder for a 28-year-old wide receiver that's on his second year. It's actually a second-year receiver. Doesn't make a lot of sense. So it just feels like he's past his prime already, and you've given up a fourth round pick that you could use next year as you are trying to make a youth movement, as you keep saying that they need to make. And they did the opposite here. They traded a fourth rounder for a 28-year-old.
Yeah. I don't know what Mickey Loomis has on the Saints ownership because he should be long gone and they should have reset already. All they're doing is continually kicking the can down the road, and it's going to be pretty bad when it all falls apart. Brian Robinson to the 49ers makes a lot of sense for them. They've had, just like their wide receiver room, their running back room has been crazy banged up behind Christian McCaffrey. He's immediately better than any of the other running backs behind McCaffrey. And sorry, everyone who wanted James or Garindo to take off. It might not be their year this year.
James hurts me a little bit, as you know. I think I paid up
Yeah.
for him in a few dynasty leagues.
He could have been the next Bucky Irving from the same school and
Still
everything.
could. Still could be, because Robinson's on a 1-year deal. Christian McCaffrey's been hurt before, so all possible. But we love all the moves that are going around right now.
Yeah, a couple of retreads were signed as well. So with the Sam Howell trade to the Eagles, the Vikings quickly signed up one of your favorite quarterbacks, Carson Wentz, to back up JJ McCarthy. And it's low key a really good spot for him. I feel like he fits the mold of that offense and kind of fits a good backup as a good backup for JJ McCarthy because in some ways he's very similar. And Amari Cooper signed with the Raiders after some time away from them. It wasn't a huge deal, but it is very interesting that he seems to overlap with Jacoby Myers, who has been rumored to be potentially available, although they've turned down at least one offer for him already. So I don't know, is Jacoby Myers available? Is Amari Cooper any good? What do you think?
So, to answer the Raiders' questions first, Amari Cooper did not look good with the Bills last year. Supposedly, he had a really serious wrist injury. The only thing that I remember him doing with the Bills last year is that really cool lateral in the snow to Josh Allen for the touchdown. And the Bills really did need a wide receiver. And so it's not like they were stacked at receiver and he was just another guy in the room. They did trade for him. They did expect him to contribute, and he never really did. Jacoby Myers did request a trade, but the Raiders at this time said that they don't plan to honor the request. And the reason being is because he signed for one more year, $11 million. And that is a steal for a guy in Jacoby Myers' position right now. So he projects. I saw on Spotrac that he projected around 60 million over 2 years, so 30 million per year. So this is a steal as far as his production goes. And then rewinding really quickly to Carson Wentz, how amazing would it be if 2 years in a row Kevin O'Connell revived two of my favorite quarterbacks and made them relevant again?
It would be great for you, but there's already rumors of Jalen Milroe getting first team snaps and going to have design plays for him. So that's already going to be eating into Sam Darnold. And I wouldn't be surprised if Milroe takes over for him within the next year, year and a half.
We will see. But switching to more somber news here, a suspension has officially been given to Demarcus Robinson. So he has a 3-game suspension. Rumored in the background that he was appealing, but the suspension was official as of cut down day. So that appeal is over and his suspension begins immediately. All right. And so that leaves us with 2 suspensions that we're waiting for news on, and that's Quinshawn Judkins for the Browns and Rashee Rice for the Chiefs.
Also, Kenny Pickett was traded from Cleveland to the Raiders to back up Geno Smith and take the place of Aiden O'Connell, who's on injury reserve. So that has also cleared up a roster clog for the Browns, who now will carry 3 quarterbacks into the regular season. So Flacco named Week 1 starter, Gabriel as the number 2, and Shador Sanders as number 3. Don't think that is super fantasy relevant now, but there was some offensive movement there. Kind of outlines a succession for both of those teams for this year, the pecking order.
Absolutely, and good catch on that, Alex. So basically, it gives the Raiders a backup for right now, and it gives the Browns some more wiggle room with their roster because we were going back and forth on whether they would keep 4 quarterbacks or not. They still have a 4th quarterback in Deshaun Watson, who remains on the PUP list. So he will be fully healthy at some point this year.
That's going to be really awkward that when they can no longer hide him because he's too healthy. Do they activate him? What do they do? What do they do in that situation? Like maybe one of their quarterbacks will get hurt, or maybe it'll be the season will already be on its way over, so they have to trade Flacco. I don't know how that's going to shake out.
Absolutely. All right. So speaking of activating, though, the Chargers activated Najee Harris, running back off of the NFI list. The Buccaneers activated wide receiver Chris Godwin off the PUP list. And tight ends Darren Waller of the Dolphins and Tommy Tremble of the Panthers were activated off the PUP list. Any fantasy relevance here? Obviously, Najee's probably the one that's going to be fantasy relevant earlier, and then Chris Godwin maybe later.
Chris Godwin is still expected to be out until October is the estimated timeline. And as we've talked about offline, I think it would have been beneficial to keep him on the PUP just to make sure he's healthy. But you also indicated that to be able to practice, he has to be activated. So they'll get him practicing with the team at least while he's recovering. Najee Harris, it's interesting because Harbaugh said recently that Najee, if he's not ready to go week 1, then they will rotate another running back with Amarian Hampton. And then all of a sudden they activated Najee Harris. I'm not sure Najee did anything in practice besides work off on the field, on the side of the field on his own, and had a visor on so no one could see his eyes. I don't know if he's going to be ready to go week 1 or if he was just close enough they didn't want to put him on NFI. But I still don't know what's happening with him and if his eye's okay. I just want clarity on that. I want to see it clearly. Unlike Najee, I want to see the situation clearly.
Always throwing jabs.
The tight ends do nothing for me, especially Tommy Tremble. They've already brought in Jadavian Sanders the year before, and then now they also brought in another tight end in this draft. Both of them are more talented than Tremble. So I would think he would be a veteran depth piece as the 3rd tight end on this roster. Waller is completely irrelevant. He's a big name and no substance.
Until he outscores Jake Ferguson this year.
I can't wait. I cannot wait to collect on that. I feel like that's easy money.
All right. So those are positive injuries that we were just talking about here, and I agree that that Najee and Godwin are the more fantasy relevant pieces there. So that's positive injury news. We have some negative injury news. As you had mentioned, the Raiders' backup quarterback, Aiden O'Connell, broke a bone in his wrist and will be out for at least the first month, maybe a little bit more of the season. 49ers injuries keep mounting as well as Cowing, their wide receiver, re-injures his hamstring, and it does seem like he'll be out the first 6 weeks of the season. It's a little perplexing because I did not see him be placed on IR during cutdown day, and maybe that's because they use those two slots because you only get two IR return slots before cuts. So maybe they're just trying to keep him on the roster and then juggle a few things around the first day of the actual season. So that'll be one to keep an eye on. Neither one of those are fantasy relevant, so just something to keep an eye on in the back of your mind there. All right. So, players that are being left on the PUP list to start the season. The first one we've already talked about was the Browns quarterback, Deshaun Watson. The Panthers, of course, leave running back Jonathan Brooks on PUP list. His season's likely over, obvious, without needing to be said. He could be activated at any point if they ever deemed him healthy. The Giants leave running back Eric Gray on the PUP list as well. And then, Alex, I'll let you break this one down because this one's really important. Texans leave running back Joe Mixon on the NFI list. So all these players must miss at least 4 games. Any fantasy relevance to anyone else? And then I'll let you break down Joe Mixon for us here.
We also have Tank Dell on PUP, which I'm surprised he's not on year-long IR. Brandon Ayuk still on PUP. Taysom Hill still on PUP. Foster Monroe still on PUP. I don't know if you say Christian Watson or not, but
Yeah, no, I
Eric
didn't. Yeah,
All.
I was doing the running backs first and then doing them positionally, even though they're not on our notes
So
positionally.
Taysom Hill, when he comes back, is going to steal points from all the other Saints players. It might be still worth picking up off waivers to play in the tight end position for you. Foster Monroe, not really, in my opinion. Brandon Ayuk will be good when he's back. Tank Dell should be out all year. Christian Watson may be usable, may not. I really don't know. It depends on how good the Packers wide receivers are the first 4 weeks of the year. If they're on all cylinders, then there's not really a pathway for him. If they're struggling, then I could see a pathway for him to be maybe the third wide receiver on the team. Joe Mixon, though, we still have no idea how he injured his foot or his ankle or what's injured at all. We still don't know what the time frame is. We have no information on it other than it seemed like they were hoping he'd be back earlier, but it's still bad enough that they feel like they need the first 4 weeks at a minimum for him to be back. They have 4 running backs that they reasonably trust to fill in the meantime between Nick Chubb, Pierce, Daria Bungawale, and then now the rookie Woody Marks. They're likely to stash some of the guys they just cut on practice squad as well. And they kept fullback Brooks, which is surprising that they kept him on the active roster. So they have 5 guys on the active roster who can run the ball. But when Joe Mixon's back, I expect either Chubb or Pierce to be cut. One of those two specifically. But yeah, we're getting to the point without any information, people are starting to wonder if Mixon will be out the entire season because we know nothing. So for me, he's completely stay away, especially in redrafts. Completely stay away until anything's clear.
Yeah, it's so crazy how we even got to this point of no information whatsoever. We don't know what the injury is. We don't know how it happened exactly. We haven't even seen Joe Mixon. So, is he a
But
missing person?
but to D'Amico Ryan's point of view, Jeff, but do you care about the person? Do you care about the person? Do you even care about Joe Mixon, the person? It's like,
I'm going to file a missing
yes,
persons.
but we also need to know this information. It's like writers have to write about their prospects for the season. They have to talk about the camp battle. They have to talk about is there hope that Mixon comes back. We have to talk about fantasy stuff. We have to make our predictions on the schedule. We have to do all this. Yes, I care about Joe Mixon, the person. I hope he recovers. But I don't even know what he's recovering from.
Me either. Does he have both of his feet still?
He probably has both of his feet like Najee Harris has both of his eyes.
Okay. Okay. But I do think D'Amico Ryans could be on the hot seat going into this year. And answers like that is not going to endear him to the media, the fans, and maybe even ownership, because ownership might get questions on Joe Mixon if they're not answered by the head coach.
I think they'd be hard pressed to fire D'Amico Ryans. I think he's pretty safe. Like they would have to have a losing record and miss the playoffs to even sniff the hot seat.
We'll see. Our final predictions are coming next week, and I do believe that CJ Stroud could benefit from a offensive-minded head coach as well. So it could be a positive thing for CJ Stroud. All right. So the NFI and the pup list were things that we knew going into this week, who was on there and who could stay on there. What we didn't know is some IR players, because this year was the beginning of it, but you could stash 2 players on IR before cutdowns and have them return. Prior to this year, if you put them on IR at this point, they were out for the season. And a few teams did take advantage of this. The running backs' injuries here were a little concerning because we didn't expect their injuries to be this bad, but the Titans placed running back Tajay Spears on IR with ankle injury, and the Packers placed running back Marshawn Lloyd on IR with a hamstring injury. Alec, what do we think about these 2 backup running backs? Like, we had high hopes for them individually, and now it just feels like the season might be wasted for both of these players.
I think the more disappointing one is Tyjae Spears because he had higher expectations of him. And this will be the second year in a row for him that Pollard basically gets the workload over him when they were supposed to get potentially more evened out this year. Marshawn Lloyd, obviously, when he's healthy, I like his upside, but if you can't stay healthy and can't get on the field, at some point they're going to have to move on from you. And you may have to call it quits. So he needs to figure out his soft tissue injuries, or he's going to be out of the league pretty fast.
He needs to eat his Wheaties. That is for sure. Yeah, that's sad because they both had high potential and it just feels like injuries are derailing their entire career. Now, Alex, I put this guy on our list here. He's not really fantasy relevant, but the Cowboys did give up a 4th rounder for him last year, Jonathan Mingo, and they put him on IR with a knee injury. And the last one here was a little bit of a surprise. The Dolphins placed their kicker, Jason Sanders, on IR with a hip injury. So I know he was being drafted as a fantasy relevant kicker. So players that have already had their drafts, which it was a little too early to start having redraft leagues before cutdown day, you need to go find another kicker in place of Jason Sanders now.
Yeah, I definitely would not draft him. As far as
Nope.
Mingo goes, I think Mingo's chance in the NFL is probably gone. I mean, they went and acquired George Pickens. They really like Turpin as a speedster utility guy. I believe they still have Tolbert, and I believe they
They
have
do.
the other Jalen, whose name escapes me at the moment. But
I think they
they
dropped
have
him.
better options.
Brooks.
Yeah, they have better options at wide receiver than Mingo. Mingo
Absolutely.
was a nice prospect, but he has not figured anything out.
Absolutely. And speaking of wide receivers, we have a couple second year wide receivers here that their season is over before it even starts. Eagles place wide receiver Johnny Wilson on IR. He has a knee/ankle surgery scheduled, maybe both. So he messed up his leg pretty badly, if that's the case. Hopefully he gets the surgery and he can come back. I don't really love the prospects for his career going forward. And the Patriots place wide receiver Jalen Polk on IR after he is scheduled to undergo shoulder surgery. Either one of these guys got a shot to come back in their career.
I mean, they both have a shot. I think Johnny Wilson is just an intriguing wide receiver, but it will take a while for him to develop, and getting a setback for the whole season is not going to help. Polk just seemed like he was on the cusp of, if you just gave him Stickum or better gloves, he might have been a really good wide receiver because he was separating, was decent at route running, but just mental errors when it came to actually catching the ball. And then once you drop a few, quarterback's not going to look your way again. So that's another thing that set him back. They could be maybe third year breakouts, maybe, but at this point, that's a long shot.
Yes, sir. All right. So, with that news being out of the way, we can look at some other transactions that were the cuts. And we're going to do it game by game from the week 3 preseason. And the first game was the Steelers and the Panthers. Steelers did not play anyone on offense, and their cuts were wide receiver Robert Woods and running back Trey Sermon. Both of them are winding down their NFL careers, in my opinion. And the Panthers also didn't play anybody. However, Trevor Etienne did look like he's a guy that could make a year one jump to be the second running back for the team. So he could pass Rico Dowdle at some point this season. And they were flirting with trading wide receiver Adam Thielen back to the Vikings, but they decided not to, and they cut the duplication of skill sets with wide receiver Hunter Renfrow, so who was retired last year and tried to make a career comeback. Alec, any of those players that you could see hop into a new team and contributing?
I think Robert Woods is dust, and Trey Sermon just isn't. He isn't an NFL caliber player at this point. Renfro could either catch on to another team, or there's still an outside possibility the Panthers do end up trading Thielen and would immediately look to bring Renfro back if he's still available on the market. But they also have rookie wide receiver Ted McMillan, who should be the number one option on this team. They have Jalen Coker, and they have Xavier Legette. So those are other reasons why they could afford to move on from someone like Hunter Renfro, who was having a pretty good camp on his return to the NFL.
Absolutely. All right. Our next game is the Patriots and the Giants. The Patriots didn't have any notable cuts this year. They kept all of their wide receivers, which that wide receiver room is very jam packed. I think there's 8 wide receivers in there after the Jalen Pope IR move. And they played backups in this game, so not too much to learn. I think the thing with the Patriots that'll be the most interesting is Stevenson and Henderson and seeing how that pans out as far as a timeshare and split goes. And then also how they roll out their wide receivers. I do believe Diggs will be their one at some point this year, and then the rest will have to follow. And then the Giant side, they have a lot to look forward to in Jackson Dart, another great start. And it was great to see Cam Scattaboo hit the field for the first time in a while. And their notable cuts were Tommy Cutlets, aka Tommy DeVito, and one of my favorites that we haven't talked about in a while, Greg Dulcich. So, Alex, Greg Dulcich is only 25. I do believe there's a few teams that could use a tight end right now, too. So, it'll be interesting to see if he latches on. He has been productive as a receiving option as well. Any thoughts on the Patriots or the Giants?
I'm honestly surprised the Giants didn't trade Russell Wilson because, one, Jackson Dart looks pretty much ready to go now. Jameis Winston's a solid backup. I mean, you don't want him to start most games. You really want him to be like a week or two filler. But Russell Wilson looks like nobody on the team likes Russell Wilson, whereas Jackson Dart, Winston, and Tommy DeVito seem like the three amigos over there, like having the best time. Everybody loves him, but Russell Wilson really struggled in a couple of the preseason action, and looks like he's fallen off a cliff. I don't get it, man. He's steadily dropped off a cliff from his time with Seattle. Like, he's really stiff and inflexible in the offense. So I don't know. I would have moved on from him and kept Tommy DeVito just for team chemistry purposes, honestly.
Yeah, the report out there is that Russell Wilson's changed the culture of the organization, so I don't think they want to move on from him from that perspective.
Who said that? Russell Wilson's PR person?
No, it came out from the beat reporters that they love Russell Wilson. They love what he's brought to the culture.
The beat reporters do?
Yeah, your favorite. But those were
No,
direct
I don't
quotes
think
of
he's.
from the team.
I think if the Browns got a fifth round pick for Pickett, surely someone would have given more for Russell Wilson.
You got to find somebody that needs a quarterback, though. There's nobody right now. Nobody right now. There got to be a buyer in order to sell. All right.
Send him to the Jets.
So,
Have him compete with. Have him compete with Fields again.
why? They're right across the street. They're right across the locker room from each other.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of the Jets, the next matchup was the Eagles and the Jets. And the Eagles at this point, they made a cut of their other second year wide receiver. I know they put Johnny Wilson on IR, but they cut their wide receiver Smith, especially after getting a trade last week done with Houston for John Mechie. All backups in this matchup, and as we mentioned before, Kyle McCord did get cut, so he did not do enough in this game to remain as the third quarterback. For the Jets side, they played all backups as well, but they cut Malachi Corley, who will always be known as the guy that dropped the ball at the 1 yard line. So that's something that I'll never be able to get out of my head, is watching him drop the ball at the 1 yard line on his should be first touchdown.
Is that all you think about with Deshaun Jackson too?
No, you got to overcome it though. You got to give me something. You got to give me something new to replace it, and he hasn't yet.
I think Malachi Corley has a chance to bounce back somewhere else potentially. I mean, he's got to put it together, but surely someone can use him better than the Jets at this point. Kyle McCord, he's either going to come back to the Eagles on the practice squad or somebody else is going to scoop him up. He's too talented to not be picked up. He's someone who could develop into a starting quarterback potentially, and I wouldn't take that lightly.
Absolutely. There was a lot of teams that liked him in the draft process. So one of those teams could easily scoop him. And you know who could use a wide receiver like Malachi Corley? The Falcons. I feel like a broken record on that. Their wide receiver depth is laughable for a second year quarterback. And speaking of the Falcons, our next matchup is the Falcons and the Cowboys. Falcons play all backups. They didn't have any notable cuts because they don't have anyone notable to cut right now. And the Cowboys, Jaden Blue finally got his first action in a while, and he left with another minor injury. Should be good for week 1, but if he can stay healthy, he could be a factor in his rookie season. And the Cowboys are doubling down on that as well because they did cut the long-time or the 3-year Cowboy running back Deuce Vaughn. So anything on the Falcons or Cowboys?
Man, I agree the Falcons could use at least a wide receiver 3 upgrade. The Cowboys could also use a running back upgrade. So both of them need to monitor either the trade market or the waiver wire here and see if they can pick up somebody. Deuce Vaughn was a fun player to root for. Size-wise, he wasn't going to work in the NFL, and he wasn't as talented as Darren Sproles, who he was compared to. I get them waiving him. I don't think anyone else is going to pick him up, so he could return on the practice squad.
All right. So we can hop over to our next matchup. It's the Vikings and the Titans. The Vikings rest everyone to try to stay healthy because they have been struggling at that all preseason. Their wide receiver core is either injured or suspended, or who knows what's going on with their wide receiver core. But they didn't have any notable cuts because Addison is suspended, so that he fell off the 53-man roster. And then for the Titans, I had some questions as far as who you believe Cam Ward's number 2 wide receiver will be. And their only notable cut was their tight end, Josh Wiley. Was there. I'll let you answer that question now.
I think Elik Ayamanor is going to be the wide receiver two for the season. Whether that starts off week one or whether it gradually progresses to that, I think he will eventually be the wide receiver two for the season.
Gotcha. I think Tyler Lockett's still there, so don't count him fully out. I know we've counted him out about 4 times already,
Mm.
and he has rebounded nicely throughout the years. All right. So the next match, anything left on this matchup before I hop to the next one?
I would just keep an eye on the Vikings acquiring another wide receiver because they have very much actually actively been in the mix to try to bring someone in.
I think they will end up with KJ Osborne, who we'll get to in a little bit that he was cut, surprisingly. All right, the Bears and the Chiefs here. It looks like the Bears offense is ready to roll right now, and I know there's still some questions about Caleb Williams' fit in the offense. They did sign the backup, Tyler Badgett, to a 2-year big money backup deal. So, and not everyone, but I have heard reports that they feel like he's the better fit for the offense, but they would never make the switch just due to the first overall pick of Caleb Williams. So that'll be something interesting to monitor. The Bears did not have any notable cuts today, and neither did the Chiefs. But my one question about the Chiefs right now is, where would you currently take Patrick Mahomes this upcoming season? He's looked really good.
I hate to disagree with you, but they cut Carson Steele.
I never got the fantasy relevance of Carson Steele, but in Dynasty, I did see a bunch of folks pick him up last year.
I think his relevance is probably coming to an end. But as far as Mahomes, I don't know. It depends if it's a single quarterback league or a two quarterback league because I can see the appeal of fifth or sixth round single quarterback league taking him because there is a chance he explodes after everyone's kind of criticized the team and the offense, and they do have some firepower on this team. Maybe Royals will be good his rookie year, or maybe that'll take some time. Who knows? Rasheed Rice's situation at this point, whether he plays the beginning of the year, sits out the middle, or at the end, or plays the whole season, or is suspended the whole season. I mean, nobody really knows at this point. Xavier Worthy looks poised to do well. Kelsey has slimmed down and maybe will be a little less distracted going forward. I don't I don't really know, but I think Mahomes will have something to prove this year, so he's definitely worth the gamble.
All right. I agree. And he's really caught my eye after being a little bit down on him going into the season. So the Ravens and the Commanders are up next. And the Ravens, not too much to be learned from them. They did not make any notable cuts as well. But the Commanders, I want to talk about their running back situation, but also they cut both of the veteran wide receivers that they had signed going into this year, thinking that they were giving Jaden Daniels a few more weapons. And that was wide receiver Michael Gallup and wide receiver KJ Osborne. And as I mentioned, Osborne could easily end up back with the Vikings. He knows the system, the playbook. The fit is almost too perfect for him to not go back. But the Commanders, who is the running back to own in fantasy this year?
Okay, let's start with the Ravens real quick. I think that we forgot to mention that Isaiah likely avoided the PUP or injury reserve designation, so he may miss week one or two, but he's coming back earlier than we feared. For those of you who do like him, for the Commanders, is it Luke McCaffrey season at wide receiver? Because they have Terry back. They signed him that we covered. They have Debo Samuel. Who's behind him? Is it Luke McCaffrey? Is it Jalen Lane? Is there
I
anyone
was
else?
thinking Lane, but I'm not sure.
I don't know if there's anyone else of relevance at wide receiver. They might be in the market for a wide receiver for all we know.
They just cut all their wide receivers. It'd be weird to be back in the market.
They still have two vets and they have two youngsters. They may be looking for more surety at wide receiver three for them.
See, them trading for Vele would have made more sense because he's not quite old, he's not quite young, but he has a skill set that actually could be used right now.
What if they go for Jacoby Myers?
They could. They could if he's made available. Just because you request a trade does not mean you get traded. Look at Terry McLaurin. He is on the team that he requested a trade from.
I mean, I could also see them go for a veteran player. Like you would say maybe Palmer, who the Buccaneers just cut.
He's 24.
I could say MVS because he would fall as the wide receiver three there, and they still have the two young guys who could potentially pass him up because he's a very limited vertical deep threat.
He actually
Renfro,
works in that offense.
yeah, especially with Jaden Daniels. So they could be targeting someone who was just cut to bring in, or they could be trading for someone, but they do need at least one more guy there.
Absolutely. They
So
should go trade for Matt Collins.
anyway, the running back question. I think it should be a committee approach. And you can look at it different ways. So Eckler would be the early receiving back and third down work guy and maybe the value because he may be going later. Ja'Cory slash Bill Krosky Merritt has the most upside, most hype. I think probably drafted the earliest. So limited early value, return on value, but maybe highest finish. And they also have with Chris Rodriguez. Is that Chris Rodriguez Jr.? I
Yep.
think. And he's probably going to be short yardage and goal line back or rotate with Krosky Merritt for those situations. So I would maybe throw the dice on whoever's drafted the latest between those three.
That's a great idea. And I think that would be Chris Rodriguez right now, but we will see as we get more into draft season. All right. Anything else on this matchup before we hop to the next?
Nope, I think that's it.
All right. We got the Broncos and the Saints in the Sean Payton Bowl here. And it looks like Bo Nix and the squad are ready for 2025. They did cut Audric Estime. I think that leads the question here the same as the Commanders is who's going to be the running back to own here. But before I let you answer that, the Saints did name quarterback Spencer Rattler the starter, and we both discussed that last week, and we thought that it would be easier to go from Rattler to Shuck versus Shuck to Rattler. So I think that common sense has prevailed here. And the notable cuts for the Saints were one of my favorites, Cam Akers, and a guy that you hitched your wagon to very early on, Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Well, they're both probably done at this point.
I would
Maybe they
agree.
have one more shot each left. But Cam Akers, I think he potentially set back his career coming back too early from his Achilles injury a few years ago. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has a lot of personal baggage going on in his life, and his career got started off because the Chiefs drafted him in the first round because of skill set rather than talent. And he's just not good enough in the league. Neither one of these guys are starters. They're backups at this point at best. So we'll see how that goes. Audric Estime, he's short yardage thumper that doesn't have any juice to him. I don't think he'll be sticking around much longer. Uh, as far as who to own from the Broncos backfield, J.K. Dobbins is going to be the guy early on in the season. I think they'll progressively put more and more on RJ Harvey's plate as the season goes on. So J.K. Dobbins to start the year, maybe RJ Harvey to finish it. That's kind of how I feel about the Broncos situation. But Sean Payton loves the committee approach. I don't know if I in redraft would want to touch this group at all.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, I think Dobbins is going late enough that you could scoop him for virtually free. And I think that's worth a dart throw. But Harvey has to work on his pass protection from what I've heard. And that's a very important aspect of the Sean Payton offense. So I think that's why Dobbins is the guy early on. All right. Now we can hop over to your team, the Texans and the Lions. Actually, your favorite NFC team, too, it feels like. So, your favorite AFC team and your favorite NFC team. Texans didn't really do much in this game, but they did cut Harrison Bryant, who was just acquired in the John Mechie trade. The Lions did not cut anyone notable. And what are your thoughts on Isaac Tesla year one?
All he does is score touchdowns, Jeff. Think
That's it?
I think they're going to do the veteran thing where they nominally on the depth chart place Reynolds and Patrick ahead of him on the depth chart, but actually play him more and utilize him more on game days than those two guys. I think that just like I said with some of these younger running backs, him at the wide receiver spot, they're going to progressively add him in and feature him more as the season goes on. Guys are gonna have to game plan like the other defenses are gonna have to game plan against Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, and Jameer Gibbs and Montgomery. I think that that opens a window for Tesla and maybe a bounce back year for Sam Laporta. It's a different offensive coordinator who may have some more traditional approaches and won't do the trickery that Ben Johnson did. I think on paper, Detroit is marginally better talent wise than they were last year, especially considering their best player on defense is coming back. So they should be in very tight games all year. I don't know if the play calling will be on the same level, but there's certainly no reason to think that they'll downslide a lot at all. They'll probably stay roughly equivalent to last year.
Yeah, we'll have to see if there is any regression due to the change, and we'll have to see them against number 1 and number 2 versus third and fourth stringers. So that'll be interesting to see coming up. All right, let's hop over to the Colts and the Bengals. Both teams played backups in this one, but the Colts' notable cuts were Jelani Woods, who was supposed to be a really good tight end, couldn't really quite stay healthy, so they finally cut bait on him. And Alex, I know I'll let you take a victory lap on this one, but running back Khalil Herbert finally got cut, and his career is probably on life support at best right now. And the Bengals, the only cut that was notable to them was they cut quarterback Desmond Ridder, whose career is probably also on life support as well.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm not going to take too much of a victory lap here. I think that's about does it for this matchup. Still waiting for an Anthony Richardson trade, though.
Yeah, we haven't seen one, and who knows when we will, if we will. All right, that brings us to the Rams and the Browns. Nothing here and no cuts for the Rams, but it does look like Stafford's fully back, and his back is in good shape. So he got through a whole week of practice with no setbacks. There is a rumor out there that he did not want to participate in camp, and this was his way of not participating in camp. So, just an interesting theory out there that as veterans age, they do not like to take place or do not like to participate that much in camp, which Terry McLaurin got a camp off.
He's been beaten up so much, especially dating back to his time with Detroit. I could completely believe that he's got back issues.
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. And all right, the Brown side here, as we had mentioned, they had traded Kenny Pickett. So now we have 3 quarterbacks, and you've already mentioned the order that they're going to go in. I do think that all 3 quarterbacks do get starts this year, and potentially even 4 with Deshaun Watson. So just an interesting year coming up here for the Browns. And the Browns did have everyone play in this game here, including Joe Flacco, which I don't really even understand what they why they would trot Joe Flacco out there for a preseason game when he was already named starter didn't really make a lot of sense. But their notable cuts were Deontay Johnson, running back Pierre Strong, and kicker Dustin Hopkins, who was a favorite there for a bit. Do you want to give a eulogy here for one Deontay Johnson?
The arms of the angel.
Is this like that
I
dog
think the dude's
commercial?
career's over. Like, I pity the team that puts in a waiver request for him.
A pity to the team.
I saw a X post that was uh Deontay Johnson is the best separator in the league. He separated from 6 teams in 3 years or something.
Oh, Alec.
He's done, man. Pierre Strong was a surprise to both of us. Thought he had a good preseason, good camp, and they haven't signed Quinshon Judkins yet. So what are they doing?
Well, there's a rumor out there that Strong was waived injured, which means that he would revert to IR, which doesn't really matter for this season, but that would explain a little bit of why the cut happened. And Judkins is just a complete mystery to me. I think the Browns are waiting for the NFL to rule, and then they want to negotiate the contract based on the ruling. So this is just open ended right now, and he hasn't practiced. He's not in football shape. Who knows if he even has a playbook? Like, it's an interesting scenario because he's a rookie and he'll have to go in there and learn a team like that. It's not like he's done this before, and hopefully there's some resolution really soon on this, because I know a lot of dynasty players are waiting to decide what to do with Judkins.
We got a few more games here, so let's power through them.
All
Seahawks
right.
at Packers. Seahawks pretty much played their backups. They cut Marquez, Valdez, Scantling, otherwise known as MVS. Discuss a lot that he is a limited player, but he is still a useful veteran. Someone should be interested in him, but probably, unless it's a really nice spot, probably not interesting until some injuries happen. And kind of funny that the Packers on the other end cut a similar player in Hardman, Mecole Hardman. Both of them have spent time with the Chiefs. Both of them are deep threats. Either one of them could wind back up with the Chiefs for all we know. But they are bottom of the depth chart, deep threats, and that's pretty much it. We'll keep an eye on them. Next episode will be fun because we'll see if anyone's been claimed and traded and all this stuff.
So, Alex, before you hop over, or well, you've already done the Packers, but going back to MVS here, there is a rumor out there that he has visits set up with the 49ers, which would not make him fantasy relevant, in my opinion.
Well, early on, if no one else
And
is healthy.
and he has a visit set up with the Pittsburgh Steelers to reunite with Aaron Rodgers. And that to me is a lot more fantasy relevant than we've talked about so far.
Is this the fast Alan Lazard? Is that what we're going with?
Well, he made MVS usable when he was a Packer. So this was many, many, many moons ago, many teams ago for MVS as well. I think he's been a Saint and a Chief and maybe and now a Seahawk since then. He's trying to collect them all.
Well, I think going to the 49ers would be a little bit underrated, especially if Jennings continues to hold out because they need bodies. And he could actually have some daily fantasy appeal because he'd probably be super cheap in daily fantasy. Rodgers, I mean, he might be okay with Rodgers. I just do not like Arthur Smith, and I don't like anything about the offense while Arthur Smith is in charge.
Absolutely. All right. Let's hop over to the next one here. And it's the Battle of Florida of the Jaguars and Dolphins. Jaguars didn't really cut anyone notable and also played their backups in this matchup. Dolphins did play their starters. And it does seem like Miami kept 3 quarterbacks, at least on their initial roster, which is interesting. And we have a little bit of a battle of Ollie Gordon and Jalen Wright. And no real notable cuts from the Dolphins side either. But who do you believe will be the Dolphins' number 2 running back who has some upside because Achan is already injured?
I am souring on Jalen Wright, so I would say Ollie Gordon is rising up the depth chart very fast and is better than I gave him credit for, at least so far in the preseason. I know you like to tell me that it's pretty much only played against twos and threes for a lot of these guys, but he's very interesting to watch. So he's someone I'd consider drafting late as a dart throw.
And I had spent the beginning part of the offseason trying to acquire as many shares of Jalen Wright as possible, and now not everything works out, but this was more injury based than talent based, in my opinion. So, and I can kind of agree with you that they might be leaning towards Gordon as well. All right, couple more matchups, 3 more to go, and it's the Bills and Buccaneers. Bills played all backups. But they did cut a few favorites of mine here in Laviska Shenault and KJ Hamler and your favorite, Frank Gore Jr. Alex, did you know about Frank Gore Jr. prior to this, or is this your first time finding out?
About Frank Gore Jr. I think he's back to the practice squad for them again. He's the best
Maybe
running
he'll
back they have on the team, and they're just disrespecting him.
better than James Cook.
Well, he's better as a running back than James Cook. James Cook is a receiver pretending
That's
to be a
fair.
running back.
That's fair. That's fair. And the Buccaneers side, they also played the backups and they cut wide receiver Trey Palmer, who, as I had mentioned, I think he's a 3rd-year receiver and he's only 24 years of age. So he hasn't had much opportunity behind Godwin and Evans. And then they drafted Jalen McMillan last year, who bumped him down the depth chart. So he is a guy that could latch on with the team because he has been decently productive, like not a top 3 receiver, but he's a good depth piece in my opinion. Any thoughts on these teams here?
No,
So
I'm
his
just really.
best.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
gonna say I'm just still really sad about Frank Gore. I hope. I hope someone else snags him and makes them regret waiving him. That's what I want.
Could have done it last year, but they didn't. So in his rookie year, he caught 39 balls for 385 yards and 3 touchdowns, and that is Trey Palmer. So I'm assuming there's a team out there that could use 40 catches for 400 yards. So Atlanta Falcons, we're looking at you right now.
You're just gonna beat that drum until it manifests.
I don't know how you have a 2nd-year quarterback and don't get him any additional weapons. Like, you're good, right?
Well, that's because it's Kyle Pitts season.
Where have I heard that before? Man, deja vu. It's like Groundhog's Day all over again.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll go to the West Coast for the last 2 matchups. It's the Chargers and the 49ers. Played mostly backups, but they did cut 2nd-year running back Kamini Vidal, and that was a little bit surprising, but they do have a loaded and jam-packed running back room right now. And interesting part here is I believe he was drafted by Harbaugh as well. So it's one of the first players that he has drafted and is admitting that he made a mistake on. So coaches make mistakes. Be really quick to move off of them. That's basically the moral of the story there. And the 49ers cut 2 veteran wide receivers in Russell Gage and Isaiah Hodgins. Any comment on those players?
No, I didn't really think they were fantasy relevant.
All right. Ready for the last matchup? It's the Raiders and the Cardinals. Both teams played backups in this one. And we'll start with the Cardinals cuts first. And DJ Dallas and Michael Carter, not much of a surprise. But yeah, they're gone and they might be on life support as well. But the Raiders had a little bit of a surprise here in Sincere McCormick, who was a little bit of a darling down the stretch last year. And I thought he played well enough, and I think he's like 24 years old. I thought he played well enough to at least be a back end roster spot here. But Alex, what are your thoughts there?
I think they should have cut Mustard instead.
You don't like him, do you?
He's an older back, and he's a year and a half removed from relevance. I just can't imagine him putting the same kind of numbers he did 2 seasons ago. And Sincere McCormick, I think, is immensely more talented than Mostert ever was. I think Michael Carter is more talented than Mostert was too. Both of these guys should find a new team at least to be RB3 or RB4 on that whatever roster they land on. I'd be surprised if they're only on a practice squad. DJ Dallas, I think the best he could hope for is someone's practice squad.
Right. I think that is the end of the matchups. Next week we will list off the notable practice squad signees and any additional transactions that happened, as well as two major things are happening next week. The first is our final prediction for the year as far as standings go, and our week 1 picks. So be on the lookout for those items. Alex, anything else here?
I am excited to see the fallout after all the cut downs and see if there's any shifting and if notable players get picked up. We'll see if anything happens by next recording.
Great.
Okay, that does it for another episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you all for downloading or listening to this episode, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please leave us a comment and share the show. Every little bit helps.
You can find us on all podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy, and with our handle N2E Fantasy on all social media platforms. Please join our community and give us a follow. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and remember, it's truly never too early for fantasy football. Thank you again.
Everybody.